ready to roll here. I'm Kevin Rhines. I am the VP of Agent Development and Broker Services. I'm really excited for this training today. I am going to walk you guys through how to use Remine as a prospecting tool. I know one of our main challenges in the market right now is lack of inventory and low. We've got buyers who are looking for properties and we can't find the homes on the MLS and those kinds of searches. And so Remine is a great opportunity for us to be able to target market to people. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let me stop presenting this one. There we go. And we're going to jump into the MLS. Can everybody see the MLS screen? I just want to make sure we're on the right screen. Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see my MLS screen here. All right, perfect. Thank you, Pam. I appreciate it. All right. And so first things first, how do we access Remine? And so it's a tool through the MLS. You guys now have access to two different tax portals in the MLS. We have access to Realist again, which is back, and we also have access to Remine. And so there's two different ways we can access this tool. The first of which is right up here where it just says tax. If you click into that, it'll open it up, or we can come down here and click the Remine link right here. Okay, I'm going to click on this just to show you what happens. If I click on tax, it's going to give me two options. Again, Realist or Remine. We're going to jump into Remine because I think Remine is the better tool when it comes to truly being able to use this as prospecting. I know a lot of us have used tax portals for information, right? How do we find PIN numbers? How do we figure out, the taxes or exemptions or anything along that lines? But Remine is a lot more than that. And so I want to dive into it a little bit here. There's a couple different ways you can search on Remine. Okay, so when you get in here, first of all, it should always default you to this search link right here. If it doesn't for whatever reason and you need to get back to the screen, just go ahead and click the search button. It'll bring you back. It gives you options to search for listings and search for properties. I would always click properties, right? We will just use the general MLS to search for anything that's truly listed in here. I usually like to use the map mode. You can kind of scroll around and move things and get to exactly where you want to get and show, or I can use the list mode. But let's stay in the map mode for right now on where we're at. The main thing when you get into this tool is asking yourself, what type of information am I looking to pull? And, who's my target market, right? And so let's use an example of, I've got a buyer who's looking to purchase in, New Trier School District, for example. And so I'm going to clear all these filters so we start from scratch, but you have the ability to do in so many different ways. So if you look up here, you can search for a specific address. Let's say you want to drop a pin on this map and then locate properties around it. You can put in a specific address. You can also put in, zip codes or different cities, but you can search by school district as well. And so you can come in and simply type in New Trier. Let's start from scratch here. Let's say I want to go to New Trier. I can scroll down. I can find the school district. I can apply that filter right here. And now it's going to remove or put the map in, and it's going to only show me properties that are within New Trier School District. Okay, so that's a pretty cool little way to do it. Let's say I want to just look at properties that are in Glenview, 60025. Okay, I can put that zip code in, click apply filter, and the system will dump out any properties that are outside of that 60025. So really the first step is starting with who am I trying to target? What's the area that I want to be in? And, how can I go from there? Okay, let's see, how does Remine get its data? So this is all public record stuff. So Remine compiles data from a number of different sources, similar to Realist. So it updates relatively quickly. It's, if we close a property in the system today, it's not going to be in the tax portal with the new owner tomorrow. There is a little bit of a lag, but it is pretty accurate information. Okay, so let's stay in 60025. Okay, just for example, and use this on where we are right now. There's a number of different things we can work off of in here. There's two different really ways to narrow it down. So if I want to target market, let's say I've got a buyer who's looking in Glenview, 60025, okay, and I want to find a specific home for them. I can't find it on the MLS, so now I need to dig deeper and go into how do I narrow that down, okay? So there's a number, you can start in here with filters, okay? So you can do it by status, list type, price, list date, status date, off market. So you can also do bedrooms, right? If they need to have a minimum of 4 bedrooms, I can put that input in there. Bathrooms, year built, lot size, square footage. You can see there's so many different filters we can do in here. Okay, so for right now, I've turned on the filters, which is listing type and price, just for right now. So if I come in here and let's say I've got a buyer who is looking for residential sales versus lease. I'm going to start in listing type. I'm going to do residential sales, and I'm going to make sure I'm looking at off-market properties. Okay, everything that is off the MLS and off the market. Okay, so you can see as I start clicking these filters, these numbers start getting smaller. So when I first started, if I unclick those, I've got about 8,000 or so different properties that show up. If I start clicking these links in here, it's going to start narrowing those down a little bit for me. Okay, and I can dive a little bit deeper into my search. So I've got my filters in here. Let's say I want to do it by bedrooms. Okay, how many beds do they have? I want something that has a minimum of 4 beds. Okay, now I went from having 7,000, almost 8,000 results to having a little over 3,000 results. Okay, and then let's say I want to look at the different indicators of what makes somebody potentially want to sell a property, right? What makes them a seller in our marketplace. Remine has something called a sell score on here. That again pulls in a lot of different public record information. Some of it is equity in the home. Some of it is longevity or years that they've owned the home. Some of it is a little bit more advanced than that, right? So some user dynamics on what they're looking at, and are they searching for baby cribs online? Are they searching for what different indicators would tell them that they're move up buyers or they're move back buyers? And so it does compile some of that. If I click on sell score, I can choose people who have a medium and or a high sell score, click apply, and now my results will go back down from 3,000 to 378. Okay, I'm going to remove that because I don't personally love the sell score. I like using my own method of determining what makes somebody a seller. So I might look at home equity. Show me somebody who has at least $200,000 in equity in their home. Okay, and I can apply that filter, and I go from 3,000 to just under 3,000. Now I can go into ownership and show me somebody who's lived in their home a minimum of 7 years. Okay, click that filter, and now I go down to under 1,000. Okay, and so you can start just continuing to narrow it down and down and down on what my search is. So these are the filters, and these are what they call layers in Remine. So there's a number of different layers. I can search for absentee owners in here. Okay, I can also search for flood risks. I can search for building types, land use. I love this one, right? Mortgage rate. We keep talking a lot about, the rates being high in our market right now, and buyers who don't want to sell their home because they're in a 3% interest rate or 4% interest rate, right? They don't want to go from 4 to 7%. But I can put little indicators in here and say, who's in a property right now that has a minimum of a 5% mortgage, okay, or a 4.5% mortgage, where that gap is smaller from them having to move from a 3% to a 7. Now it's a 5% to a 6.5 or a 7%, right? And so I can use those different dynamics and filters. So let's say, show me everybody now who has a 5% interest rate. So I went from 1,000 to 148 results. Okay, you can continue to go further. What's how much time do they have left on their mortgage? What was the last sales price? Distress deals is another one that you can look at for those of you who are looking for foreclosures or short sale properties. You can put these different tags on there. So I want you to see how much you can narrow this down and how much you can truly target market, right? That's the name of the game when it comes down to anything that we're doing in real estate is who am I going after? What's my buyer or my seller's need, right? How do I get the information? And then ultimately, how do I extract that information and put messaging to it in what I want to get out, okay? And so right now I've got 148 different searches. Where do those properties then show up? Okay, so you can see I can zoom in, I can look at where those properties are, I can see them, and then on this little panel right here, it'll show me all of those individual properties. And so I can go through and narrow them down one by one. I can select the ones that I want, or if I know I just want all 148, I can say select all, okay? And so I'm narrowing my list down, I'm extracting my information, I'm pulling my contacts, okay? I can also click into this at any point and see any one of these properties. Let's say I want to see what's going on with this property here on Shermer Road, okay? If I click into that, It's going to bring up the information on the property. There's so much information that Remine gives you on each individual property. I can see what their loan balance is, how much net equity they have in their property. I can see who the owner is, how long they've owned it, what their sell score is. I can look at the obviously tax information, schools, school districts, the valuation types, the different ones that they have on there and what their values are. And if you get all the way to the bottom, it'll show you owner and associated people. Okay. So I can see who the owner of the property is. And a lot of times Remine will be able to give you not only the name of the owner, they'll give you a phone number if they have one on file associated with that owner, as well as email addresses. Okay. So email addresses are big. So sometimes you can run searches in here just to kind of extract and pull emails from the system. What specifically does sell score mean? It's a great question, Meredith. In a perfect world, the sell score is an indicator of whether or not somebody's a highly likelihood of selling. Okay. And so they pull a number of different factors. Similar to what I pulled here in narrowing down this list was, how long have they lived in the home? Do they have equity in the home? Are things changing? Some of it is, consumer index where they pull information from it. I'm not a huge fan of the sell score. I think it is a indicator of what they're doing, but I would use your best judgment in narrowing things down. I've seen plenty of times where people have MLS sheets or these Remine sheets on their desk and getting ready to list a home, and they're on there as a low sell score. Okay, so don't put all your eggs in that basket on just exclusively pulling lists based on the sell score, but I think you can use it as kind of an indicator. How accurate is the information? It's fairly accurate. I mean, I never would say it's 100% accurate. I mean, as far as owners of the property, I would say it's pretty accurate on that. I would always cross-reference everything when I was selling, right? And so I would use this system as an indicator for it. Maybe I can cross-reference it with, Forewarn or any of the other systems that I use to get information. But this is really fairly accurate, okay, on what we're looking to do and where we're going from, okay? Just continue to fire questions into the chat. I'm going to kind of reboot this and start it over a little bit and show you a different way of doing it. So I'm going to clear all of my filters here. And now let's say I'm looking for a specific area in Lake Forest. Okay. So I'm going to put in a specific area. I'm going to want to drop a pin on that, right? So I'm going to put in what the street address is. This is my old house in Lake Forest. So I'm just going to click show on a map, and it's going to drop a pin on this house, okay, inside of here. Okay, now I can zoom in, zoom out, but if I have a specific area, let's just say I know a buyer wanted to see this property, they lost out on that offer, okay, and now I know that they love this area and they want to live in this area, and so I want to try to narrow down my search with homes in that area. Okay, so I can draw a specific area as well in Remine. I can use a circle for a radius and click here and just kind of expand my radius search. And now the system will say, okay, I'm only going to show you properties within that radius. Okay, I can clear that search and draw or drag a square or a rectangle. Okay, again, it's going to just pull directly from that area. I can do the polygon search. Okay, so now I can come in and literally draw exactly the areas that I want. So let's say I know they only want to live along the woodlawn and they want to come down here. They want to be on this side. I can draw anything that I want in this system. Once I get back to where I started, it's going to stop the search. I think, there we go. Oops. Oh, snap, you can't draw that. Okay, great. All right, let me get out of this and I'll restart. Okay, so a user error on that one, my bad. All right, so I can come in here, I'll draw whatever area I want. Okay, get back to my starting point there. Okay, so I get back to my starting point and now I have the polygon search in there. So it really truly is your control in the system, which is what I love, right? I love the idea of being able to say, I'm looking at my pipeline or I'm looking at my business and what is the individual need of my consumer? How can I solve that, right? And so I can draw in these systems and do a number of those different things, okay? Let's get back out of here and let's walk through one more way that we can search. Okay, so I've shown you at this point the map view. If I zoom out, I'll get back to kind of the overall map on where we're at. There's an advanced search up here as well. Okay, so if I click on advanced search, I can put in all of these different things. So, right, what's the status? What's the off-market stuff? List date, status date, and I can go through and just scroll down and fill out any information that I want to put in here. Once I'm done filling out all that information, whether it's information on the structure or public record information, property value, home equity, sell score, all of these different things I can click through on here without having the map on. And ultimately, when I'm finished, I just click apply and I go back to my search. Okay, so you can use the map search and or you can use the advanced search. Okay, I personally like the map one, but whatever works best for each individual person. So let's go back in here and let's say I am, again, looking in New Trier School District. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to put the filter on for New Trier. Now I have all of those different indicators and homes in there. Now I'm going to run my search for, again, my off-market properties. I'm going to, so now I've got 25,000 properties here. Let's say I want to do by mortgage rate, show me people who have a minimum of a 5% mortgage. I'm going to go from 25,000 people to 4,000 people. And then I like to do my ownership time and my equity. So show me people who've been in the home minimum of 7 years and have an equity of, let's say, $250,000. Now let's up that a little bit. Let's go 500. Okay. So I went from, now I'm at 2,000 people. Now I'm down to 1,200 people. I can do it by property value or whatnot. Okay, so now I've got my list in here. I can continue to narrow it down. I can say, okay, I'm in New Trier School District. I have all of those different things in there. And so this is one that I know a lot of you are working with doing EDDM, every door direct mail, right? And every door direct mail is wonderful and it's great, but it's one that I'm now picking and choosing the postal carrier's route. And so sometimes that's less expensive than pulling your own list. But in this case, we're pulling a list with specific indicators for specific messaging, right? And so it's one that if I didn't want to go the EDDM route, if I want to cover everything in New Trier School District, I can't do that through EDDM. I'd be buying too many different postal carrier routes, right? But if I know that my buyer wants to be in New Trier District, I know these different indicators to look at off-market properties and different things, I can use this list to export a mailing list. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So let's narrow this down a little bit more. Let's say my buyer is looking at a minimum of a property at 1.2. Okay, so now I'm going to put the minimum at 1.2 million. So now I've got 107 different properties that I'm going to look at in here. Again, I can go through and look at each individual one, or I can select all. Okay, I can add 107 different properties. The way to get the information out is a little bit challenging, and usually when I work with people, they get confused. Okay, so if you select all of your properties, you have to add it to a cart. That's really your next step in pushing this information to the next area. So if I want to pull these 107 different properties that I have selected, I select all of those properties and I want to click this button up here that says cart. Okay, and so I'm going to hit that. It's going to give me a pop-up button right now that says, what do you want to name this? And I'm just going to call it New Trier Test. Okay, so I'm going to choose that. I'm going to hit add. Perfect. So now it's going to add it to my cart. Okay, and so once I've got that done, it's added it in there. There's on this side over here in this column, there's all these different sections, right? Your search and whatnot. This is also where you get to cart. So now I've selected them all. I've pushed them into my cart. If I click on carts, it's going to bring me to an area where all of my properties are. And so you can see this is my NT test. It's going to load those 107 different properties into here. There we go. Okay, and so in here, there's all these different information. Here's the address of the property. Here's the status. Everything should be off market and what it was. It'll give you zip codes, prices. It'll give you how many bedrooms they have, all bedrooms, baths. Any filter that you put in there will be here, right? And so now, again, I can go through and narrow down this list. Or if I want to export and pull the entire list, I can select them all. Okay, you can do a couple of different options in here. Send mailers is going to send you to a third-party system that's going to try to charge you and work through that. I always think it's best just to download either the exported list as a CSV or an Excel file, or simply to print mailing labels. And so you can do it either way. Printing mailing labels is fairly simple, so I'm going to skip that step, and we're just going to go right to the export section. Okay, and so I'm going to click on export. Again, it's going to bring me a different drop down. in here, I'm going to name this the same thing I did before, Nutrient test. Okay. And then it's going to say, what do you want? What type of information do you want to pull out of this? Okay. So now I can select, show me the owner's name and information, right? So I'll say owner information, and I'll say, show me mailing address information. Okay. When I'm done with that, I click the export button, and it's going to send everything to the system and start compiling it. It'll give you a pop-up that says we'll notify you in a few minutes when your download is ready. It's depending on how big of a file you're pulling is how long it takes. You'll get a little bit of a pop-up on this screen once it's complete, or something down here on alerts that'll say your system has been completed and you're ready to use your export. Okay. And so in this example, while we wait for this, okay, I've pulled 107 different properties in New Trier School District. I know my buyer wants to purchase properties that are at a minimum of $1.2 million. I've done different indicators in there for equity and for interest rates and for all those other things. And so now once I get this list, what would my message be, right? And so there's a lot of people who are having enormous success right now with this target marketing of saying, okay, I'm going to do either handwritten notes, or maybe I type up a letter and I sign the letter on the bottom for each individual person. And then I send a note to them stating that I have a buyer looking for a property in your area. And that you would love an opportunity to do a walkthrough of that property if they would ever consider selling. Okay. These are working. People are getting callbacks on these and getting opportunities for walkthroughs. The challenge is your message in that letter needs to be consistent with your follow through. And so if I write a letter to them stating that I have a specific buyer looking for that property, I need to make sure I stay in that lane when I go on that meeting. Okay. I don't want to walk into that meeting and then start flipping and trying to solicit them to work with them on the sell side. Okay. People who are going to open their door and trust your messaging are going to believe that you're telling them the truth. And so really try to stay in your lane with what you're doing. Okay. When you export your chosen info, the list remains in the cart. Yes, the list will still remain in the cart. So you can see this little green pop-up that popped up here says my CSV file is ready. It's also on the alert down here. What I can do is just click, oops, disappeared on me. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to say download, and now it's going to download this New Trier test, which now will pop it into an Excel spreadsheet, which is popping up right now. Can you guys see this Excel spreadsheet? I'll make sure it's following my different tabs in here. Does everybody see the Excel? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so now this is my Excel spreadsheet, right? And so I'm in here, and you can see there's a number of different columns. The great thing about Excel is you have the ability to customize this to be whatever information you want. If I look at mailing address, it's going to give me just, 922 Ashland Avenue, not with Winnetka, not with any of the rest of that stuff, okay? Now, these other columns are going to break it down individually on each one of those, okay? And so I want to kind of, now I get to the mailing zip code. I want to kind of piece this information to give me what I need and what I want. And so I can have the house number. I can probably just remove, if I want to have, okay, so the true mailing address, okay, 1411 Gregory, I can come in here and I can delete this column. I can probably delete this column, this column, this column. So now I have mailing address with mailing city, state, and zip code. Okay, if that makes sense. Because what you want to do is have one master sheet. Some people like to print labels or just print it directly on the envelope. Personally, for a list as small as this, I would make it as personal as possible. I would be handwriting the addresses on my envelopes. Okay. And so you'll see you have the address in there. You have the owner information in here. If there's multiple different owners, it'll give you the multiple different owner information on here. So owner 1, owner 2, and all of that other information that you have in here. Because that's all I really asked them for was what's the information on the owner of the home and what's the information on the address. So now I can pull my list and I can go from there. Okay. Does that make sense to anybody? This is where people usually get confused and get caught up in this system, is once I am in my search and I find my properties, how do I get those properties out? So I know I had 107 different properties. How do I pull those? Make sure you select the properties first, which ones you want. Make sure you send it to the cart, which is up here, and then make sure you go into your cart to view it at any time. Okay. The system will always save any of your past history. So at any point I can go into cart and I can pull, this is lists that I've worked with people in the past on a number of different things. I can go back in there. I can send a second mailer. So it's not where if I send it out and I know this New Trier list is what I want to do and who I want to send it to, I can send it to those people at any given moment. Okay. And so that's how you would extract your information on those lists. Okay. Let's see. I've got a couple of questions in the chat. Did you not ask for property address or mailing address only? I chose mailing address. You can choose either one. And so when you get to your export list, it's going to say what information do you want to pull out. And so the more you use it, the more comfortable you're going to get with what you're getting out of that information. And so when you go and you pull that out, there's an option to choose which ones you want. And then there's an option on the bottom that says, set this as my default for future exports. Okay. How do you select individual properties? Okay, great question. So if I'm selecting individual properties on here, this is my narrowed down search. On this column here is all the properties, the 107 properties. What I did before is I hit select all, pulled all 107 in there. I can go through these one by one and only select the ones I want. There's a little box in the upper right-hand corner here that I can select. So if I want that property, this property, I can just go through and select one at a time, the ones that I want. That's how you would do the individual pull of those properties. Okay. Who can we reach out to if we're having issues with our Remine account? I would reach out. There's a support number system down here. I would click on that and I would go to support center. If you can't access Remine, I would reach out to MRED because it's fed through MRED, or talk to your OM and see if they can help you a little bit. This is directly from the MLS, right? And so the way that I accessed this originally is I just went into the MLS, I clicked this tax button and I chose Remine, or I went down here and I clicked the Remine button and went into here. Sometimes it's as simple as a pop-up blocker. Because you can see Remine, when I launch it from here, it's going to want to open up a new window in there. If you're having issues with it pushing and loading the next window, it might be just a clear caches and cookies on your account, or your pop-up blocker that's on there. Okay. Can you walk through exporting to an Excel spreadsheet again? Yes, I will absolutely do that, because that's one of the harder ones that we have to do. All right, so let's change my search. Let's do a totally different one. Let's leave the same filters in there, but let's remove New Trier. Okay, and let's do a different area. All right, let's move that. Let's go in here. Let's do 60062. I don't know, I'll just throw out some numbers. So now we're in Northbrook. Okay, so now I'm pulling my information in Northbrook. My price range, I got to adjust a little bit. So now let's say I have a buyer who wants to be, let's say 750 in Northbrook. Okay. Now I've got 37 different properties that have pulled in there because I have my minimum of 750. I'm looking for off-market properties. I'm looking for people who have equity in their home. Let's lower this equity a little bit because we're still at $500,000 in equity. So let's turn that back on. Let's go back to equity. Let's say they have $300,000 in equity. Okay. So now I've got people with $300,000 worth of equity. So I got 52 people. Still, I'm searching the interest rate at 5% minimum of anybody who has a minimum of 5%, lived in their home 7 years or more, and they're in Northbrook. Okay. So now I've got 52 different listings that I want in there. Again, I can go through and pick individual ones, or I can select all. In this case, I'm going to select all. So I've got all 52 of them selected. Okay. I'm going to, next step is I have to add it to a cart. Okay. So I'm going to click up here in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to add them to the cart. I'm going to give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to just say Northbrook test. Oops. There we go. I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit add to cart. So now it's going to pull those 52 people into the cart. I go now from, I leave this search section in Remine and I want to come over to the carts. Okay, so I click carts. Here's my 52 different, here's my Northbrook test listing. Remine will load it. I have all 52 of them. I'm going to select all 52. I'm going to hit the export button. Okay, I'm going to give it a name again. I'm going to call it Northbrook test to be consistent. And now this is where we were before. I can choose the columns that I want to have in here. So in this case, I'll show you the difference, and I'll go owner information and property address information rather than mailing address information. I can also add a number of different things, right? If I want to know on my Excel spreadsheet what their estimated value is, what their sell score is, any of these different things that I choose will show up on my Excel spreadsheet. So when I pull this out, if I want a wealth of information, I can select any of these. What's the value? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? All of these different things, right? And so it'll give me tax IDs. When was it listed last? What's the township? All of this information is things you can pull in and use. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to do owner information and property address. This down here is what I was talking about, where I can make this my default export setting. So if I'm going to use this system a lot for these, and I know I always want to have owner information and property address information, I can click this button, and moving forward, it'll always save these for me. Okay, once I've made my selections, I'm going to hit export, and it's going to go ahead and compile and pull all my lists together for me. Okay. And then again, once it's done, it'll pop up at the top with a little button with a notification or an alert down here. Check and see if we have any other questions. Okay. All right, perfect. So we'll wait for that to happen. But yeah, so it'll always spit out in an Excel. Use your Excel spreadsheet, set your information up, and just extract and pull it from there. Once the Northbrook one pulls, I'll get that in front of you so you can see that. Is there a filter for property style, one style, two? Yeah, there is actually. So if I come back into search, let me see where that is. So I can search single family. Let's see. There was. Where is it? Might be under these filters here. So let's just filter through here. So you can has garage, has basement. Here we go, floors. And so if I want to click here, it'll pull that up. It puts it up here. Once I click and turn those filters on, they show up on the top up here typically. So let me find where that was, unless I didn't pin it. The more you play in the system, the easier it's going to be for you. But it is a little bit of time to get comfortable and used to it. Like once I turn that on, you see I pinned it. So now it'll show up on the top up here. You just have to get in and play, right? The best way to learn any system is just to get in there and start playing it. So now I've got my floors up here. I can click on that and I can say maximum 1 story, right? And so now I'm looking at just ranches. So it's going to take me from 52 to 5. Okay, so that's really easy. If I know somebody wants to live in Northbrook and they need a ranch, now I've got 5 individual properties I can reach out to, write handwritten notes to, and go from there. Okay, so I've got my alert set up here. It's exported my list. I click on that. I can download my Northbrook list. It sends my download here. And now I have my Northbrook list. Okay. Perfect. Let's jump back over here. Let's check out my chat. Building type you can do as well. Yeah, Renee, you can do building type. The best way to get comfortable with it, like I said, is just to get in here and start clicking and seeing what these work. So if I come in down here on my layers instead of my filters, I can click on building type. I can choose single family, condo, townhome, multifamily. Okay, I can start going at it from there. Okay. There's also the ability to, for our city agents, right? If I'm looking for, I know somebody wants to live in a specific building in Chicago, I can search it by that. I would drop the address in here. I would type in a specific address on it. I would drop the pin in there. And then I would pull and I would draw around that specific address for my city people. If there is, shoot me in the chat a address of a building that you would like me to pull, just to show you as an example. And I'll pull that so you guys can see it, because that's a little bit confusing sometimes for people. So just drop an address in the chat and I'll just throw it in there. All right, thank you, Holly. So let's do, there's a bunch of them. Look at all these people throwing out suggestions. I love it. All right, so let's do 500 West Superior. Okay, I'm gonna copy that. I'll throw that in here. 500 West Superior. I want to show it on the map. Okay, so I click this button. It's going to show me on the map right here. Okay, that's my address. And so now I am going to come in here and I'm going to draw around that building. Okay, or I'm going to come in here. I'm going to draw it. I always like to do this rather than just selecting it, because I think the information that they give me is a little bit more accurate in it. And so I still have my building type on here, I think, selected as, where's my building type? There we go. And so if I select condo or whatnot, it'll pull all that information in there, right? So I've got 600 different results in here right now, just in this area. Okay, so here's my 600 different results. I can come in, excuse me, and I can choose and pull all of these extractions from that. And so that's the best way. This is 500 West Superior. I can click this button right here. I can view all of the different units. and here you go. Okay, so you'll see some that are active. You'll have some in here that are not active, but I can pull each individual property. That's good, excuse me, because in the city, it's very hard to do EDDM for stuff, right? I personally, I want to guarantee delivery on anything that I send out. And so if I'm sending out a mailer to the city, to a specific building, and I do EDDM, we're hoping and praying, right, that the postal carrier is going to drop that in each individual mailbox inside that building. Okay, but sometimes, you know, I've heard stories, I won't say that it's happened, but I've heard stories where sometimes the postal carriers will bring the stack of them and just kind of put it in the mailroom and hope people will grab it. I want to make sure it hits directly into their mailbox. And so in which case, then I'm going to write 500 West Superior, Unit 711 on that, and I'm going to send it through on my own with a stamp, making sure it guarantees delivery on where I'm getting. Okay. Are there these on and off market? It depends on your filters, Laura. So if I choose to only look at off market properties, it's going to dump everything that's listed. If I say, give me the full list, it's going to show me both on market and off market properties. Okay. When you put in a building address, you're also drawing around the building. I am. I think that's the best way to do it, where I'm guaranteeing it's pulling from that. Sometimes, yeah, I would play in it, right? You guys know your buildings probably better than I do, you city sales people, where you'll know how many units are in there. You understand the ins and outs of all that building. Get in there, type in the building address. You saw how I got to this screen, right? Where I had 500 West Superior in here. I clicked view all units and it gave me all the information on there, right? But in this case, I got a few different ones. So here's my off market and here's my on market. So if I'm viewing the units on here, it's going to show me what's currently active in 500 West Superior, right? If I choose the one that was underneath it, it's going to show me the off market properties at 500 West Superior as soon as it's done loading down here. And so you saw I only had, you know, whatever it was, 45 or 50 on markets. And now in here, I'm going to have the extra off market units. Okay. So get in there, play in the system, pull it. But I want you to really start training your brains to think of not what the objection is, right? We all know what the objection is. A lot of the challenges right now is just, I can't find the inventory. Okay. And rather than being the broker that's like, okay, there is no inventory, I'm going to sit back and wait for it to just show up in the MLS. You're too late at that point, right? Because there's so much demand that by the time it hits the MLS, now we're chasing. Okay. And so if you see a problem or you see a challenge and you can narrow down, and spending time with your buyers and knowing exactly what they're looking for, you can come into this system and pull that information out and truly target market to your consumer. Okay. There's a number of different other add-ons and layers and things that you can do with it, but I don't want to get too crazy with this tutorial, because I think sometimes when you jump around as much as I have today, people's heads are ready to explode with it. But I wanted to make sure you understood the different dynamics of what you can do in here, how you can narrow down searches. You can search by address, city, zip code, neighborhoods, school districts. You can search specific people in here. So let's say you're working with a client and you're going to list a property for them, or you're going on a listing appointment. You want to know how many other homes they own or buildings they own. You can search by the people's names. There's so much different information in here. That's why that's why we thought it was really, really important to train you on this, where most people just look at tax information as a way to extract information from the system. This is so much more than that. If we look at where we are in just technology in our industry right now, if you can be a broker who understands how to extract that information from the computer and from the systems, you have a huge leg up on your competition, because there's so much information on here that just wasn't available to people in the past. Okay, does Remine have a filter for style of house? Traditional, mid-century? I don't think they do have that, Dahlia. I know they have building types, last sale, distress, cash buyers. No, I don't think they have it by type, unfortunately. So that might be just a little, sweat equity you'll have to put on your end, on just kind of searching or driving by and doing it. Just taking a look at those homes. Okay. Does anybody have any other specific questions? You guys can throw them in the chat. I know we've got a little bit more time, but I want to be respectful of your guys' time as well. And we did record this, and so I'll post it probably on the app by tomorrow, or check out the, on platform. We have that link for accelerate90, which has all your videos and your links on there. So check that out as well. Can we remove realtor owners? I don't think there's a filter in there for that. I like where your head's at on that, but I don't think there's a filter to remove brokers as owners. Remine likes suggestions, so maybe send them a message regarding style of home. That's a great suggestion. They are good, right? And so it is one that you can send them things, and they do update this system and listen. You can filter by square footage, absolutely. I don't know that you can filter by attached garage versus detached, but you can filter by square foot. It's one of the filters under here. Square feet right here. And so you can pin this and then you can filter by square footage. Okay. Is there a big difference between Remine and Sales Genie? Which would you use? Sales Genie is good as well, Riley. I think both are very good systems. Because I'm relatively new to AT and came in February, I'm way more comfortable with Remine. I know the ins and outs of it. So my default is just going into Remine. I would say there's no wrong answer on where you pull your information, as long as you are truly target marketing where you're going and you're thinking outside the box, right? That's my main goal with everything that we do on coaching and training, is to help you guys understand the different dynamics in the market and point you in a direction that you can pull that information out. So as long as you're looking at things in that way, and you're, kind of thinking not where's the roadblock and I'm going to stop, but I'm going to push myself through that wall and kind of come out the other end better for it and with an advantage, that's what I would always recommend. Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate all of your time today. I hope this was very informative for you. If you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to reach out you can shoot me an email, you can reach out to your OMs, you can reach out to your MBs, and just, but start getting into this system and using it, because this is our main challenge in the market right now. I know we have a number of brokers who are doing the pipeline challenge right now, right? And so if you're looking at your pipeline and you're saying, I'm getting to that point where there's that bottleneck, right? I've got buyers who are or I've got people in there who I want to list their home, but they can't list their home until they find a home to buy. Now I need to look at that individual person and figure out, how do I move that? I need to solve that problem one-on-one. That's why the pipeline, or just tracking your business, is crazy important, where now I'm not looking at it from, a macro view where I'm staring at it from the helicopter. I'm really in my business looking at, what's best for Jim, or what's best for Judy, or whoever. And I'm really trying to peel back those layers. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. I'll get this uploaded as quick as possible. It'll be loaded by tomorrow at the latest. And so reach out if you have any other questions, and have yourself a fabulous day.